from throughout Europe. Again, I am not going to attempt to pronounce their names. I'm going to let them speak for themselves. So
maybe I could start. Okay, moin moin. So you can say moin moin for every time of the day. My name is Katharina Matthijs and I'm from Germany, from Kiel. It's next to Denmark. It's not Denmark, it's Germany. And yeah, I'm very, very happy to be here.
Good morning, friends and colleagues. I'm Martin Reeves. I'm the Chief Executive here at Coventry City Council. It's lovely to see you all.
Good morning, my name is Lefteris Papagiannakis and I'm the former Vice Mayor of Athens for Migrants and Refugees.
Good morning, I'm Nazek Ramadan from Migrant Voice.
Good morning, my name is Gaetano Di Paolo, I come from Naples, Italy.
Good morning, my name is Manuel Hoff. I'm from the International Organization for Migration, and thank you very much for MiFriendly Cities for the invitation.
okay, we're going to have an expert panel discussion now, where Nazek from Migrant Voice will be chairing this. So I'm going to leave it all to you now.
Thank you. I think this might be working. It's not working. Good morning. Okay. All right. It's not working. Sorry. Is it working?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Keep this just in case. Okay. Well, welcome everyone to this very exciting panel discussion. As I was introduced, my name is Nazek Ramadan. I'm the director of Migrant Voice, and I'm delighted to be invited today to chair this session with distinguished guests from a number of European countries. This is really exciting for me for one reason. I mean, well done, Rising Global Forum for Peace Forum. As someone, because I grew up in a war zone, I'm originally from the Lebanon, and I lived, probably spent best 8 years of my life when I was young. I grew up in war, during war, 8 years lived during the war. So I appreciate the importance of peace and how important peace is. And I remember back then, people they just wanted peace, and they say, all we want is peace, with all due respect to the song, all we want is love. Actually, you want peace first, then love comes next. And there was a saying that became very popular. I mean, I'm talking about, I've been here for more than 33 years, this was no time ago. People came up with a saying that was repeated across the country: give us peace and we will inspire the world. Peace is so important, and this is why I'm so delighted today to be sitting here at this brilliant event and you know, making a tiny contribution. I looked before I came on the stage. Thank you, Google. I Google searched the spending on the weapons and military, and it was, I think, last year we have spent $1.7 trillion on weapons and military around the world. The value of illegal arms trade was at least £95 billion. I mean, I raise these amounts because I just want everyone to know how much we invest in war, how much we invest in conflict, how much we invest in arms, and maybe how little we invest in peace. It's about time we invest in peace. I think it's really important, given that there are so many conflicts and tension around the world. Actually, we need to talk again about peace. We need to reverse the current trend and sow the seeds for peace. It's very important. I was inspired today. My son will be very proud of me. I was listening to the news early in the morning before I came here, and listening to the England football team manager, Gareth Southgate, and he's describing an incident. I don't know if you've heard the news. He has to exclude one of his players from the team playing, and he said, "We are a family. We communicate our differences and we work through them." And that was brilliant. I thought, this is a message we need to get out there. Let's communicate. And I'm delighted my organization, Migrant Voice, is about communication. It's about engagement. It's about talking to people and building bridges and reducing tensions. Also peace takes different forms and shapes. It's not just ending wars and conflicts. I'm delighted to be, my organization is delighted to be part of MiFriendly Cities, because peace within the community is also about community cohesion, and the MiFriendly project is trying to create this model this great model for community cohesion and sowing the seeds for long-term peace. Now, the good news is, of course, there are lots of people working on peace already, on creating peace. The theme for this event, creating ecosystems for peace. I mean, work is already happening, taking place. Maybe it's not reported as much as wars and conflicts and problems, maybe because it's not newsworthy sometimes, but hopefully today is the right time for us to hear about some of this work. And you heard earlier about MiFriendly Cities initiative and the great work that has been taking place. And I'm delighted today with my guests, we will learn from their work and experience. Also sowing the seeds of peace and working on community cohesion and on inclusion. But perhaps I would maybe start by introducing my guests again and saying a little bit more about them. I felt very guilty chopping their biography, CV. They have, you know, long history of achievements, but given the time, we have to, well, do with a short summary. Apologies for that, but the guests are staying here for the event, so please do talk to them during the breaks and ask them more. If I can start with Katharina Matthias, who is a coordinator of integration and participation at the Department of Migration in Kiel, Germany. She works on access to employment, market, health and education system, and social participation. She has worked for several years in the field of migration, of course. My second, I don't have to go in the right order, I'm going to follow my order here. Gaetano Di Paolo is also a Chief Research Officer of Foundation Eiffel Campania. He'll tell you more about what it means, and teaches at the University of Naples. He's also project manager and senior advisor in educational, social, and cross-cultural initiatives carried out by both local municipalities, agencies, and businesses, which is very similar to MiFriendly Cities, what we're doing. He works on promoting cooperation, partnership across sectors, regionally and across different countries. Then my other guest, Manuel Hoff, he's the project officer for the Resettlement and Integration Unit of the International Organization on Migration in the UK. He has worked on migration governance, migration and development planning, and humanitarian assistance in Ecuador, Central America, in Geneva, Switzerland, and in Berlin, Germany, and which country you haven't been to? And Germany with the Center for International Peace Operations, so he's the right person to be on this panel. I'd like to introduce next Lefteris Papagiannakis, who is the chair of the working group Migration and Integration of the Eurocities Network and vice president for refugee issues of European Coalition of Cities Against Racism. He is president of the Council for the Integration of Migrants of the municipality of Athens, in Greece, of course, where until August this year he was the vice mayor on migrant and refugee affairs. I'll ask him later why he is no longer. My final guest, Martin Reeves, of course, is the CEO of Coventry City Council. He is a governor on the board at Coventry University and is the first honorary president of Local Authorities Research and Intelligence Association. He was the president of SOLAS, which is Society of Local Authority Chief Executives, in 2013, and now leads the Digital Leadership Network, very important skills, digital stuff. Thank you so much. So this is who are my guests. I will ask them, be asking the same question to all my guests, and I expect them, unlike me, to keep their contribution to 2 to 3 minutes. Yes. So that's what you get when you're so my first question to Katharina from Germany. I mean, Germany is not just a destination country, but in general, overall, our image about Germany is a destination country for many migrants, especially in the past few years. And Germany was so brave. Your chancellor, you know, welcoming a good number of refugees, and this created lots of, I mean, different reactions from your country. Some being very supportive, and others maybe not as supportive. But so maybe you can tell us more about this. But the question is, from your experience, how important is the participation and integration of migrants for the creation of ecosystems of peace in the new communities? And can you, of course, share with us some examples from your work from Germany, of course?
Yeah, thank you for this little question. I've got many blue cards, but I will keep it short. I feel honored that there's a picture of Germany that we welcomed refugees in the year 2015-16. Now I maybe have a different opinion on that because we closed our borders and we get laws which are now very strict against migrants and refugees. But back to your question, for me integration is so important. It's an intersectional topic which is not based in our department, it's not based in our public administration, so I'm very sad about it, but I'm happy to be here to talk about it. And yeah, what is for example, I'm working with migrant and refugees who would like to build up an own club, for example, the Iranian Friendship Club, and I support them to get monies or room or something like that. So I just try to give them the opportunity to create an ecosystem of peace, and I love that definition, I really do. So it's my favorite word for the next year, for the next weeks, I think. And yeah, that is one of my working fields, and also try to lead them to one of our biggest organization of migrants, the Forum of Migrants, so they can talk about their problems or their solutions. And I was very happy to see so many interesting examples during the day. So yeah, this is maybe a very short answer to the long question, but yeah, maybe we can talk about it after all of this.
Thank you so much, thank you. Can I just maybe move straight to the same question again to Lefteris from Greece, because Greece was the gate to Europe many years ago. For many years it was the gate to Europe, then became the gatekeeper to prevent people from crossing to Europe after Dublin rules, and this has changed dynamics in the context in Greece. But maybe if you can answer the same question and tell us about what from your work and your experience, some examples, of course, from Athens, about how important the participation and integration of migrants are in creation of this ecosystem of peace.
Yes. When the borders closed in 2016, March, we had what we call the common declaration between the EU and Turkey that tried to prevent people from moving, which is a part of the deterrence policy that the EU is implementing, unfortunately, all of us together. We cannot forget that. We all do the same thing. Greece became suddenly a destination country. We were so used to be a transit country where people passed through and went probably to Germany or in Nordic countries. Suddenly we became a destination country, and we had to work on the policies that all the other partners were doing for so many years. So that was a big challenge for a country that was in an actual crisis, the financial one. You cannot forget that we are just coming out from a 10-year financial crisis that caused people losing 40% of their income, the country losing 25% of our GDP. So it was a very difficult reality. And in the same time, we had the experience of migrants for many, many years. The first migrant community, one of the first migrant communities was established in the 70s, the Filipino community. And we have migrants for many years. Unfortunately, we never worked seriously on integration, never, ever. We never did anything. We have the best example of self-integration in the 90s with the Albanians that came into the country, 1 million of them, and we still have the biggest community is still the Albanians with 500,000 members. So we had to learn fast track and implement a policy without any money, without any experience, and without any type of personnel. So this was the context that we had to work. So the participation of the migrant communities and the refugee communities that were created is essential, because they helped us with simple things, simple, complicated, but simple. For example, translation. We had people living in the streets and we couldn't communicate. So the established migrant communities helped the city to talk to them, to communicate, to help them. So that was a very basic need that we couldn't cover. After 4 years, I think that things are a bit better. but still a lot of challenges to face.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. The same question to Gaetano, another gate to Europe and another gatekeeper trying to keep people from moving towards the northern Europe if you want, but you also have something in common with my country, Lebanon, because there are more Italians living abroad than in Italy. So so how do you answer the question? Same question. Given that Italian like Lebanese, they travel a lot, but what do they do when people come to the countries, and how do migrants integrate? And what? Let you answer it. Thank you.
As to the Italian example, it's pretty much very similar to the Greek one. So we're just a few miles west, but it's the very same thing. So we get very many flows of migrants. We actually don't even agree on how to say refugees, asylum seekers, migrants, economic migrants, fortune seekers. We go beyond them. We don't ask ourselves anymore this classification. They are all migrants. And of course, on a daily basis, apart from those that we see on the news, the big ones, very small boats from Africa go to Sicily on a daily basis. So whatever the news says, they keep coming on a regular basis. This is true. And pretty much as Lefteris said, we haven't been doing that much for integration itself. And let's say we are naturally tolerant, which now is not enough. Tolerant, I think it's a word that sounds even offensive. I tolerate that you from abroad come into my town, into my country. So once tolerance was a word that somehow was communicating sympathy, but now it's coming, I feel it like it's more compassion. Why somebody who comes here must be treated because he needs compassion, he needs to be one of us anyway. So tolerance is not a flag that I will put outside of my windows at all. Yet we didn't do so much for integration. In a sense that we actually, we haven't had so many migrants for a long time. When I was a little boy, which was not so long ago, but sounds like, when I was a little boy, I hardly see anyone who was not from my hometown. No Indians, no Africans, no Maghreb, no, absolutely. I'm talking about the 80s, the 70s. Migration is something in my hometown that has come way later, respect to Britain. Probably because we had no colonies, probably because we were the migrants, as she said. We have, there are very many Italians in Brazil, Argentina, US, Australia, all from my hometown, apart from Italy, because we have to say that the southern Italy is also a land of migrants towards the north of Italy. We still now migrate from the south of Italy to the north of Italy. So somehow we feel migrants as well. I got nephew and niece. They are all away. They're in Germany, Holland, Spain. Nobody stayed in Napoli, which is sad. But our context is a very particular context because it's a metropolitan area of 2.5 million people. And so all these kind of migrants who come, they bring their own story, but nobody is really cared about their story because we're still fighting ourselves. So integration is going to be quite hard. And what is said to say is it mostly relies on private and volunteer activity. The public sector is coping with so many problems, infrastructures, housing for the actual residents, that the migrants are seen as a minor problem. But now that the numbers are rising, Now the problems comes out, plus the news and all the scandals and politicians debate are making things like this. So, in the end of the day, I mean, we have to face the fact that our communities have changed a lot, and in a very small amount of time, maybe 10, 15 years. It's not been a process slow like in England or in France with the colonies. And so now we are coping with this problem that for us it's overwhelming. So I'm very happy to be here and take practices from you, experience from you, so at least I spare time being a pioneer.
Thank you. So maybe my next question to Manuel. Manuel, how do you answer the same question from your area of work, because you work on helping people to resettle, integrate. So how important is their participation in this process?
Let me start maybe from the global perspective that the IOM as the UN agency for migration is working on, and point towards the cube in the back, which is the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. That is our overall roadmap of achieving, as a global community, sustainable development. And for the first time, when the 2030 Agenda was approved in 2016, migration was included and was considered as an integral part of sustainable development. And that was a long process, and had for long been coming, to realize that migrants and refugees are an important part of communities, are an important part of societies, and leaving them out basically is leaving out an important part of societies, of communities, to participate, to contribute to development processes, and therefore we are reducing the potential of our communities, of our societies. So I think for that reason it is important, not only because it is in the agenda, but it is a logical step to recognize that migrants and refugees are part of society and need to be part of society, need to be considered as a part of society. Then the other way around, what would happen if we don't include migrants and refugees in that? We certainly have one important part of the population that is always going to be worse off, and that is going to create inequalities, that is going to create tensions, differences, and that is effectively not contributing to peaceful societies. Maybe from our IOM work as well, sharing a few experiences on that. Migrants and refugees' participation is important, but it is important that they come as prepared as they can be about receiving information about the communities, about the societies that they are getting to know how to engage, how to participate, what are the cultural dynamics, what are the services that migrants and refugees can access. But it's also important for the settled communities to be aware of the diversity and be aware of migrants and refugees arriving. Why is that? Because these communities, as Gaetano says, are already diverse, have migration experience, even though they might not receive that as a migration experience. Internal migration is a very concrete example. When we talk about peaceful societies and participation of migrants and refugees, we need to talk about participation of everyone in a community, not only migrants and refugees.
Thank you. Thank you. Now, well, last but not least, our host, Martin, you must feel very proud hearing about My Friendly City. What's happening in your cities, but anything else you want to say about this as well?
Thank you. I'll be brief, and certainly I'm no expert. And for those that were sitting here earlier on, listening to the views of the participants, a number of whom are still here from the My Friendly Cities, I can't add any more value to the debate, because through the eyes of those that are actually in the middle of the integration discussion about how services are not just delivering support to them, but much more, and crucially, how our colleagues and friends from all over the world can shape those services in their communities. for good and for positive. Nothing I can say can top that. But what I do want to say is probably three very quick things. The first is I have a history here of only 11 years. And I knew about the city from what I read, and what was clear to me in my reading and understanding of this place was it had an international global reputation for peace and reconciliation, for the notion of city of sanctuary, for the notion of positive integration, community cohesion, and being prepared, willing and able, and actually chasing down the need to bring people and welcome them from all over the world. Anyone that comes to a new city, whatever our backgrounds, has to test that out in reality. You have to. I happen to be a chief exec, which is a privileged position, but we all have, I think, the right and the need to test that out. Let me tell you, 11 years on from knowing this city, that is endemic, it's in the DNA, it's true, it's real, and it is more important now than it's ever been as a result of some of the polarisation we're seeing through the politics and some of the global challenges we've already heard. If you don't believe me, look at the surveys that we have about community cohesion, about how people in this city and the region actually want to live together. So if you don't believe me in terms of the perceptions of that, look at the reality of what is happening in our places. So that's great. So that's the first point. We're not complacent, but that's the first point. The second bit is the welcome from not just Coventrians and people in the city, but also, we've heard it already, the exchange. Those that are coming in as newcomers into our city, our great city, are making it greater, because they're not just asking the question of what can you do for us as migrants and refugees, and what can we do with and through and for you. And that again feels very real, along with the big signs of us being genuinely a city of sanctuary and welcome. And then the third bit, I guess, as a chief executive colleague from the City Council and a public organisation, we've heard about the challenges on public services at the moment in the UK and actually across the world. Maybe the thing that I can speak with some authority and expertise on, if nothing else, the truth about how we really deliver these kinds of projects like MiFriendly Cities, how we deliver services at really the heart and start with the migrant, the refugee, the resident, is actually to think not just from that perspective, but what makes great services, what makes great communities, what makes great cities. Because when you start to look at it through that lens, you soon realise the powerful things that we heard earlier on. The health system in this country, the local authority services, the job employment services, the skills services, the licensing, regulation, the housing services, all of those, if we're not careful, are looked at in isolation. The ecosystem which we're being told really to talk about is exactly where this is at. What a brilliant example earlier on from our nurse colleague and friend. We can, if we look at communities delivering and understanding services with themselves, for themselves, we've got some amazing examples in Coventry and the region, that not only takes pressure off those public services, even more importantly than that, it delivers much more focused services, much more services that are actually sustainable, enduring, and deliver for a kind of integrated, safe, harmonious future. That's the reality, and that's why these conversations are so important. So I would finish these comments by saying that Coventry has always had this renowned global reputation. My humble view is it's real, and I genuinely believe with some of the challenges that we've heard about already, we are not in this city or this region going to be prepared to ignore those. We will bring them out, we'll have some of the most difficult conversations, but we'll do it through the heart of the people that know, not those who have been the usual suspects.
Thank you so much. Now, given you still have the mic, maybe you can, I know you've already answered half my second question.
Sorry.
Maybe you can answer the other half. So my second question is, I want to ask all the panelists, given the global context and the situation in your country, I've tried not to say Brexit, could be one of them. What are the forces that undermine coexistence between newly arrived and established communities, and what can be done to address these?
I'll be very brief, because I didn't touch on it. I'm genuinely interested in listening more from other perspectives from around the world. So let me just be very, very brief. And I'm conscious there's some politicians in the Cathedral today. I'm also conscious that I'm not a politician, and I should, particularly in a pre-election period should be very careful about what I say. But let me tell you what I think the biggest issue is about some of the big economic changes that we've seen over the last 10 years, and some of those toxic shocks. Tectonic plates have moved all over the place in terms of our environment, our politics, our social reform, welfare reform. Let me tell you this, what I'm seeing, which is why I said it's even more important for these kinds of conversations, in Coventry, in the region, up and down the country, is a polarisation of views, a sense of a loss of kindness and friendliness in our narrative, whether it be a political narrative, a public narrative, our own personal stories. And we must reclaim that space. We must find a way to say we can vehemently disagree with each other in our own spaces, which might be contested spaces and places at times, but we do it from a position of love, of friendliness, and of kindness. And I really believe that Coventry, and you might say, I would say as wouldn't I, has got so much I think that we need to keep learning, but I think we've got a lot to teach as well, others that can learn from us, that despite all of these challenges, we are still seeing some amazing kindness, some amazing togetherness and integration, probably not despite all those challenges, because of them. And I would just urge us all, in the spirit of being together for the next few days and connecting, as Mike said at the beginning, to do that. I can have lots of conversations with you about the reduction of funding of public services. We heard Sinead say earlier about the challenge on ESO courses. Do you know what? That is real. But unless we get back to a sense of celebrating, nurturing, engaging with different diversity, different views, some of which we would not agree with, I'm afraid the rest of that becomes a sideshow. This is about kindness, friendliness, celebration of what makes people human, what's making them different, and what makes cities such amazing places to live.
Thank you. Thank you. Katharina, the same question to you. So, what do you think are the forces that undermine coexistence in Germany between newly arrived and established communities, and what can be done to address this, or what are you already doing to address this?
Yeah, thank you for this question. So I talked a lot about this question with my colleagues, and so we have like maybe 3 reasons. The first one is that we have, and I think it's also the same in Italy or in Greek or in other countries, so we have got a growing populism. So maybe you noticed that we have a new political party in our system. It is called AfD. You can translate it with an alternative party for Germany, and the alternative is that there should be no migrants or refugees in Germany. And that is interesting because you can see a change of discussion. For example, now it's totally normal to talk about bloody migrants or refugees and all that stuff, and I think, yeah, that makes me frightened a lot. And yeah, there's a big change in discussions also in the public, and that was not before they were in the public. So the second one, there's a great envy debate between the newly arrived people and also the established communities. For example, in the 60s we had many people from Spain or Italy, and we called them like guest workers. So that means they're just guests in Germany, and we are sure that they will move again. They will just go back to their countries. But what a surprise, they stayed in Germany. And for example, I think it was last week that an old Italian lady told me, oh, it's so unfair. When I came to Germany in the 60s, I had no free language courses, and it was so difficult to find a well-paid job, and now the refugees, they just get everything. And I had to tell her, no, that's not true. Really, it's not true. So they also have to work for it. So I think that's also very interesting to see those purchases in our society. And maybe there's another one, and maybe also a reason for it, it's the excessive and cumbersome bureaucracy in Germany, because sometimes our system is not logical. So it's just like, oh, why do I have to go to this apartment and not to this? It's the immigration office, but I have to go to the other office? I don't know. And I was just like, yeah, that's not logical. I'm very sorry about that. And in Kiel, I can say you have, and that is, it's a huge problem. It's unbelievable. You have to wait a long time for an appointment for the immigration office or for the registration office. For example, you have to wait now until March 2020 to get an appointment. So it's like 5 months you have to wait for your documents. I'm just sorry, I don't get it. And another point is also a low intercultural opening in some parts of the public administration. For example, there are also many cultural understandings, and I'm not sure if it's so intelligent to say, yeah, German is the only language. I'm sorry, I'm not able to speak English, so you have to tell me everything in German. So I think that's also very interesting. That makes it difficult to integrate in our public administration. Yeah, but now to the second part of your question. So what can be done against it? And that's my own opinion, because I think in my position I have to be neutral, so I don't have to say this party is good or bad, but I will never ever silent towards these forces which are for discrimination, which are for sexism or everything else. So my work is to create an open and diverse society, for example, to give them space to discuss different opinions. And I think that's a very big problem in Germany, that we not able to discuss different opinion, because when you say something like, oh, I'm not sure if I like migrants or refugees, I just don't met them, but I'm not sure, then you're a racist. And that's the end of discussion. And in my opinion, that can't be true. So maybe we have to talk a little bit more with others. We have to show that there's a diverse society also in Kiel. And yeah, to get to know each other a little bit better. And for me, my next big project is to make refugees or migrants, to say an example like that, because I'm not sure about the definition. For me, they're just people at all. To show that they're not foreigners at all, that they're just normal people with normal needs and all that stuff. And yeah, that would be very interesting in the next few weeks. And I have to make a little advertisement for the city of Kiel, because Schleswig-Holstein is very beautiful and all, but no. In the last 5 years, we spent like 2,000 euros. It's like, I think I looked it up, it's like 180,000 Pfund to support participation and integration. So if you have a great idea to support your own community, you can get money from me. So be nice to me. Yeah. No, and I think that's a very good solution, because other cities don't have something like that. They just say, okay, yeah, you can do that, but just do it with your own money. Oh well, that's not a solution at all. Yeah, that was my answer.
Thank you. Excellent, thank you. Can I now ask Lefteris? Maybe we keep this in mind this time. You have one thing. Okay. I know you probably also touched on answering some of part of that question, but you would like to expand more. So what are the forces that undermine the coexistence between newly arrived and established communities in Greece?
Fear, ignorance, and preconceived ideas. As you know, Greeks believe that we are the chosen ones, that we are the best in the world. You owe us everything because we discovered democracy, so we are all excused for whatever we do. Our enemies are the Turks and the Germans, because we have enemies also. And it's very easy to feel safe when you have someone else to blame. So we do that a lot. And it's very difficult when you have so much inexperience as a society to deal with others, other identities, other preferences, others in general. So we need to train people. We need to talk to society. We need to stand firm our ground and not to budge when populism knocks on our door, because it is a very easy discussion also to blame everything on populism. The same with Germany. We have a much more violent party in the national parliament, Golden Dawn, who is now on trial for being a criminal organization. They are responsible for the deaths of migrants, but also of anti-fascist Greeks. And also I would add, because you mentioned it, hypocrisy. We are in a union where we are discussing a lot about protecting our borders and diminishing the flows and working in the countries of origin, and we implement deterrent policy, etc., etc. But in the same time, we are creating a fund for weapons research. So we are